Alright guys, so this video is just to kind of help you maybe learn some good study habits. I really don't think it matters what class you are in. If you want to be successful, you have to have ways to learn the material, especially in this hybrid format that we've got, because so much responsibility is on the part of the student to watch videos, study the material, learn the material outside of class where you may not have the teacher right there close to you. And so studying is just an essential skill. And I made this video many, many years ago for my high school students, and I showed it to all of them because I found that one of the biggest issues with success in my classes was just simple knowing how to study. And studying can look different. It depends on what the class is, what the material is, what the teacher expects of you. So there's not just a one type of method, but it is something that you have to learn and practice. And so with you guys being in anatomy and physiology, I'm just going to be honest and say this class is tough. Okay, this class is very difficult. It's difficult for students who are straight out of high school and are used to studying and preparing for classes. And it's even more difficult if you've been out of the game for a little while. And so the way your teachers taught in high school may not be the same way that your teachers teach in college. And so you've got to learn how to prepare for tests and quizzes and things of that nature. And so it is a learned behavior. And this is something that I want you to understand, is that something you have to practice. This is not something you're just going to pick up on your own. This really isn't something that someone can teach you. And so I know that this video, I'm trying to teach you how to study, but this is something you really kind of have to figure out on your own through trial and error, okay? It has to be practiced. Just like with any other skill, the more you do it, the better you will be. And so you have to determine what works best for you as an individual, what works best for the class that you are in. Honestly, I think one of the hardest parts about college is that each professor is different. Each professor has different expectations, and you really kind of have to figure out what they want you to know, what their tests are going to be like. And so this is an ongoing process, okay? Really, you're never done learning how to study and trying new tips and tricks. And so I kind of put a few definitions up here because oftentimes students think that studying is one particular thing. So I wanted to kind of show you what the definitions of studying were. Pretty much is devoting your time on trying to acquire information and knowledge, trying to learn about or investigate a particular subject, reading, looking closely at something, reading in detail. So the main goal is to learn and acquire new information. And I normally do this in a setting when I've created this PowerPoint. So when it says, can anyone tell me a word that was missing? Oftentimes what students think studying is just straight up memorization. Now, memorization has its place, okay? But in terms of understanding material, memorization is not always going to be good enough. And to be honest, there's a lot to memorize. In anatomy, there's a lot of things you have to know. There's a tremendous amount of information. And while memorization does have its place, it is not the only thing that you need to do to study information. Now, if you're wanting to memorize material, this is the key. And what I found is that one of the biggest kind of stumbling blocks for students is they don't know how to study, or they are not willing to put in the time. Unfortunately, this class is going to take time. As I've told students before, either you put in the time in the moment or you take the class again, okay? So either way, you're going to have to put the time in. So you need to decide when and how you're going to do that. But you do have to be committed. And so if you were studying for anatomy lab, honestly, this is the best thing that you're going to do. We're going to go over the parts, we're going to name the parts, and it really is going to be memorization. But there's some hard words, and there's a lot of words. There's a lot of bones, there's a lot of muscles. And so what you're going to have to do is take that information and repeat it over and over and over again. So some things that you can do to help you with that is flashcards can be good. A lot of times if you've got pictures, that can be very helpful. You can put the pictures on your flashcards. You could do Quizlets. I don't personally make Quizlets, but there's all kinds of Quizlets out there that you could use, or you could make them yourself. I personally prefer something in my hands rather than on a computer. You could write something over and over again. Sometimes writing can be helpful. One thing I want to encourage you to do is that when you're doing flashcards or when you are trying to repeat, visualize, okay? Create those pictures in your head, say it out loud. Talk to your dog, talk to someone in your household, or just talk to yourself. But a lot of times, physically saying those words out loud can help your brain remembering them. Touch. Now, for anatomy lab, this is going to be especially important. Put your hands on the models, okay? You touch the forehead and say frontal. Even touch your own. You know, we're doing human anatomy, so if we're learning bones, you could touch the area like the humerus. You could touch your arm and, you know, kind of go over those locations. So sometimes the combination of touching and saying it out loud, all of these things are helping to make brain connections. Mnemonic devices to help you remember. Anytime you can connect it to something silly, a lot of times you're more likely to remember it. So I encourage students to, if something reminds you of something else, kind of write those things down. You know, like for instance, I think adipose looks like soap bubbles. You know, bone looks like tree rings. Anything that you can do to connect that material to something that you know, it can be very helpful. And really the number one way that you're going to be successful is if you test yourself. It's really easy to think you know something just by looking at it, but you really don't know if you know it until you test yourself. So doing practice activities, doing the flashcards, getting someone else to ask you questions, this is going to be really important to your success in this class. Now, as I mentioned, memorization is not the only thing. When we're talking about studying, memorization is great for just knowing, you know, this is that bone or this is that muscle. But when it comes to your lecture material, understanding is going to be key, okay? You can't just memorize the words on the piece of paper and expect to do well. You have to understand what those words are telling you. So you need to truly understand. And so a lot of these other tips are going to be ways to help you understand the material and make connections, not just memorize. So as I mentioned, studying is something that is going to be different for everyone. So I'm going to give you some tips and some suggestions, but here's the thing. Studying is personal, okay? What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for the person that sits beside you. So you have to make it your own, and the only way to learn your study kind of styles is to practice and to try different things. And once you find what works, it is something that you will have with you and you can continue to use throughout your education. So you do want to use a little trial and error. What I would highly suggest is not waiting until the middle of the course to decide to start studying. This is something you need to start working on day one. So you do need to set some goals, make a plan. I do think it's important to be realistic. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to walk out of anatomy with a 95 or above. For some people, your goal may just be to pass. Your goal may be to make a B. But set a goal for yourself and kind of give you something to work toward. Now, this is the most common excuse, okay? I'm busy, I don't have time. Now, here's the thing. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to be real. Everyone is busy, okay? When you are moving into adulthood, if you're already a full-grown adult, maybe you are married, maybe you have children, maybe you have a full-time job, I understand that those things make studying difficult, but everyone is busy. Okay, so you're going to have to make the time. This is a conscious decision that you have to make. So you almost have to treat your studying like a job. Set aside time that is specific to studying. Think ahead, plan accordingly. You have a schedule. You know when your tests are going to be due. So not having time, aside from major life emergencies, which we all have those happen, not having time is not an excuse, okay? You have to put aside some time in order to be successful, okay? So one of the things you need to do is find an environment that is conducive to learning. If you're trying to study at home and you're in a loud room with people coming in and out and children needing things and spouses needing things, or if you're trying to sit in a store where there's people coming and going, that's going to make it really, really difficult for you to learn. You know, even if you carve out 30 minutes in the morning of quiet time, somewhere where you are free of distractions. And I'll be honest, even I'm guilty of this, put the phone away. If you really want to be successful, you want to be able to focus, you don't need to have that phone right beside you, drawing your attention away every time it beeps or dings or vibrates, okay? If you really want to be successful and focus on studying, you need to have the phone away, because we all want to do what we want to do. Nobody wants to spend their time studying. We would much rather scroll through social media on our phones, and our brains are naturally going to gravitate toward things that don't make it think. So if you're tempted by that phone or you're distracted by the phone, your studying may not be very effective. All right, don't wait until the last minute. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a procrastinator, okay? I work best under pressure. But when it comes to studying for your anatomy exams, you have too much to learn to wait until the last minute. You need to break it down into smaller increments and study in smaller pieces for longer periods of time. You typically have a week or more, depending on whether it's lecture or lab, to prepare for the next exam. And when you wait until the last minute, that is definitely going to increase your stress and anxiety. Also, your brain gets overloaded, your brain becomes stressed, and it's not going to be as susceptible to learning when you kind of feel that anxiety just kind of hanging over your head. So don't wait until the very last minute, study in shorter sessions. It also kind of allows you time to see what you know and what you might need help on. Never be afraid to get help, but if you wait until the very last minute, it's too late to get help, okay? So kind of start early preparing for that material. Now, take breaks. Your body gets tired, your brain gets tired, and so don't work for too long. If you just kind of sit there and you're exhausted, essentially your brain's going to take a break whether you want it to or not. So your studying will become ineffective. So things that I would recommend is getting up, stretching, walking around the room. If it's a nice day outside, go outside, get some fresh air. Eat a snack, you know, kind of get some energy up, and then get back to work. So maybe study for, 15 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and maybe do that for about an hour. And you can get a lot of good studying done in that kind of time frame. So if you pause, take a minute, a lot of times it'll increase your focus and your studying will be more effective. Now, use technology, guys. This is something that I'm not great at. I'm not a technology guru, but a lot of you guys have gone to school and grown up in the age of technology. And so there's tons of things out there, things that are already made, things that you don't have to really create. In the world of AI, there's lots of materials that can help you learn. If you don't understand what the notes are telling you, go type it into Google. Go to an AI site that finds an explanation or summarizes. You can use things like Quizlets, videos, games. One of the things I'll recommend throughout the class is watching videos. There's plenty of videos out there. Even if I don't post it, it doesn't mean you can't find videos on your own. Sometimes hearing someone else explain it can be helpful. There's lots of study games like Kahoots and GimKit and things like that that you could easily make. You guys could get together and a group of people could create them and use them. So take advantage of technology. There's plenty out there. All right, as I mentioned earlier, making connections is going to be important. Anytime you make brain connections, it's going to help you understand. So memorizing big pieces of information that you don't understand is never going to help you, okay? You have to do something with the information. So especially in lecture, you've got to make connections with the material. One thing that I'll do as I teach is I really try to break down big words. We focus a lot on prefixes and root words and suffixes. A lot of times these can be very helpful in figuring out what the words mean. Sometimes they can at least help you narrow down your answer choices. Those mnemonic devices can be very helpful. I like to draw. Now, one thing I really won't do a lot is in lecture is draw, because I don't have a whiteboard in the room that I lecture in. But I love to draw pictures. If you were to ever come to me one-on-one, I do a lot of concept maps, flow charts, things like that. If you're creative, you can make up stories, songs, poems, and normally the dumber and sillier they are, the more likely you will remember them. All right, as I mentioned earlier, one thing that's very important is you've got to test yourself, okay? A lot of times students, I know in the past when I was teaching, like in high school, I would have students come to me and they would say, I studied, I really did, and they still didn't do well. And I'm like, well, how did you study? And a lot of times they were just reading the notes, they were trying to memorize the notes. Well, your brain checks out, okay? So it's great to read over the notes, but you need to see if you actually understood what you read. And the only way to do that is to test yourself. It's kind of like even for your labs, you know, you can study through the handouts and you can look at the pictures with the names right beside them, but you don't really know you know it until you test yourself. You know, fill in a blank diagram. Almost everything we do you can find on Google. You can find pictures, you can find activities. So a lot of times there are practices built in to your Moodle page, and so just make sure you are doing some practice. Get someone else to ask you questions. You know, have a family member. They don't even have to understand it. I find that it's really a great way to learn something is if you can explain it to someone else. So try to teach somebody else that lesson, and hopefully maybe that can help you learn it as well. All right, collaborate. Now, I know we're only in here for a short time, but I would encourage you to maybe get with some other people in your class and create a study group. That can be very helpful because you're all going through the same things. You're all needing to know the same things. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. And so maybe where you're weak, someone else is strong and they can help you, and then you can help them in other ways. But this is really great for testing yourself. If you are quizzing a partner, that's helping you learn it, but it's also helping them learn it. So I would highly encourage you to work with other people. All right, get help if you need it. Now, one thing I will tell you all the time is I am here for you, okay? I really am. I'm available during my office hours. If you ever have questions, I think this is incredibly important that if you have questions, you ask them. Because if you sit there quietly, you go home and you still have that question. So take advantage of my office hours. We have some really great tutors that help with anatomy. I would encourage you to see them. I will post their hours on Moodle and give you more information as needed. But the tutors can be a great way to kind of help you learn and give you some study tips as well. All right, be positive. You may not do well the first go around, but if you keep working and keep trying, you will be able to find methods that work for you, okay? Being positive does really go a long way. So just keep working, just keep practicing, just keep getting help when you need it. And stay positive, okay? Hopefully by the end of the class, by the middle of the class, something will click and you'll start to have the success that you're looking for. Here's a video that might help you. Some of these are the same things that I just covered. You don't have to watch it or anything, but there's a video on some study tips. Also, here's some videos made by Miss Crystal. She's one of our tutors, and so you're welcome to click on these links and maybe learn some things of how to study. So I hope this is helpful to you. I don't know if you guys will watch it or not, but I'm definitely going to encourage you to practice studying, try different things, but most importantly, do it, okay? No matter how you do it, you've got to study to be successful in this course. Remember, I'm here if you need me, and I hope you guys have a great day.